This video is going to focus on how to add and subtract decimal numbers. So when I start with the numbers of 21 and 7/10 plus 12 and 31/100, I could add these together as fractions, but I could also convert them to decimals and then add the decimals together. So when I look at 21 and 7/10, I know 7/10, I'm going to want the 7 is my numerator. That's going to go in the tens place. So that's going to be 21.7 because I would read that as 21 and 7/10. I would rewrite 12 and 31/100 as 12.31 because again, I want my number to end in the hundreds place. When I add decimals together, it is very important that you line the decimal points up. So if I write 21 and 7/10, I'm going to want the decimal point for 12 and 31/100 to go directly below that. It does not matter if the numbers at the front and the end line up. It only matters if the decimal points line up. So I'm going to write 12 and then the 31 behind the decimal. I can always add zeros to the end of my numbers as needed when I'm doing my addition or my subtraction. So now that my decimals are lined up, I can now go through performing my addition. So with that 0 added on, I have in the hundreds place, 0 plus 1 is 1. I have 7 plus 3 is going to equal 10. So I'm going to write down the 0, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 2 is 4. And then 2 plus 1 is 3. My decimal is going to go straight into my answer right below where it was. So I get 34 and 100ths when I add together these two numbers. Similarly, the same thing happens with subtraction as well. So I can look at 58 and 11/25 minus 32 and 9/10. Now, when I'm looking at 11 over 25, I can't just write that that's 0.11 because that only can happen if it's a multiple of 10 for my denominator. However, I can change 11/25 into a fraction out of 100. So 25 times 4 equals 100. So I can multiply my numerator by 4 to find the equivalent fraction of 44 over 100. So 158 and 11/25 is the same thing as 158 and 44/100. So I could write 158.44 for that fraction. So when I look at my 32 and 9/10, well, 9/10 is going to be 0.9. So again, I want to take my decimals and I want to line them up. So when I have this here, I want whatever my decimal point was for the first number and my decimal point for the second number, and I want them to line up on top of each other. So if I were to rewrite this, I could say I have 58 and 44/100 minus 32 and 9/10. Again, I could always add zeros at the end. It is just important that my decimals are one on top of each other, so all of my place values line up. The tenths place in both numbers is stacked right on top of each other, and so is the hundreds, and so on. So now I can go through my subtraction. 4 minus 0 is 4. Now when I go to 4 minus 9, that doesn't equal 5. If I have 4, I can't take away 9, so I need to go and borrow from the number next to it, the 8. So my 8 becomes a 7, and my 4 becomes a 14. 14 minus 9 equals 5. 7 minus 2 equals 5. 5 minus 3 equals 2. And then 1 minus nothing equals 1. Again, I'm going to put my decimal point straight down below where it was from the problem. So I get 125 and 54/100. That is how I would add and subtract my decimals.